What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Trench Warfare Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Thorn, and I'm here with Duke Manyweather. Duke, how you doing, man?
Brandon, what's up, man? That time of year again. I always enjoy the coup de grace, so to speak, of the season, and being able to come on and do this show to wrap the regular season up.
Yeah, man. This is going to be our all pro show. We're going to do first, second, and third team as we have done the last couple years. I really like getting the third team in there just to give another guy at each position a shout out and recognition. And I think it's especially important this year because it is so tight in most of these positions. So we're going to do three teams, and then we're going to finish with our protector of the year, first, second, and third place. So, which is overall offensive line.
Yeah. So, should we talk about before we get started? Should we talk about like kind of what we've gone back and forth about in terms of criteria with snaps played? I think it's important to that we lay that out, especially with some of the stuff we saw from the Pro Bowl voting. Um, that immediately got us talking like, hey,
Yep.
we should set some parameters.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's a certain cutoff in terms of, games started or snaps played and or whichever way you want to look at it. And I was just looking for tackles over the last 8, 9 years or so. The lowest amount of starts that we've had for a guy to make the All Pro team was Teron Armstead in 2018. He had 10 starts. That's the lowest amount of starts that we've had at tackle, over that span, if not longer, to make. He was second team All Pro that year. And then Tyron Smith had two 13 start All Pro teams, one first team in 2016, which was maybe the best offensive line unit we've seen in 10, 15 years. And then he was second team in 2023. So 13, 12. I mean, you could take it down to 10, I guess, amount of starts if is one cutoff. And then another way to look at it is snaps played. And then if you do that, it's like we like to hit at least 500 snaps. That's kind of been the low that we've seen. Anything under that, it becomes difficult. However, this year, with Lane Johnson specifically, he's at 434, I want to say. I don't have it in front of me. So he would be the lowest amount of snaps played that we've ever had for an All Pro. And I don't know how you landed on right tackle there. So, but yeah, that's kind of our criteria though. Generally, like you want to see 12 or more starts ideally, and you want to see 550 snaps played.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important that we highlight that Lane's at I think 449
Okay.
snaps. But I think it's important we highlight kind of that 10 starts is kind of the floor,
Yeah,
the floor. And I
it
think
is.
that the 10 starts and then whatever the snaps end up being within that. But I think that 500 is a good rule of thumb. But I think if you gotta at least meet one of those 10 games,
Right.
500 snaps. Those are kind of the floors of it. Um,
And you
and
have to be exceptional, obviously. Right.
Absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, that can open up a very fun conversation I think that we're getting ready to have
Yeah.
with this because as we've seen, you and I have been keeping track of this stuff weekly. I think
Yep.
you've been a little more outward about it than I have. I mean, I post clips and stuff on my Instagram, but
Yep.
um, our dialogue has been since week one on some of these players, the context within how some of these players are performing.
Hmm.
Um, and this year is different because now we're starting to look and see that there's not your usual names there.
No.
There's not going to be a Tyron Smith in the mix. There's not
Nope.
going to be a Zach Morton in the mix. There's not going to be a Teron Armstead in the mix.
Nope.
So it's definitely going to be interesting. New names are going to be emerging. Even the guys that were, really behind some of those names we just named, there's going to be even more guys that are up and coming and emerging that we've seen kind of break out this year. So
Yeah.
I think we should get into it because there's probably 4 to 5 names at each position that are vying for truly the two team All Pro that will go out, but then definitely our 3 deep All Pro.
Right. Yeah, and just before we dive in, too, Duke and I pretty much are on the same page, like with the top 5, 6 names at each position, but we actually don't know who we selected.
No.
So that's what is going to make this especially fun. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to go first team, um, and left tackle. So, yeah, you're the guest technically. So why don't you kick us off with your first team left tackle this year?
My first team left tackle, who I thought was exceptional, has always had the reputation of being an exceptional pass protector. But I think this year, his strain in the run game, his ability to finish with the new team, there was a lot of scrutiny about this player when he was traded for, and that's Laramie Tunsil. I think that Laramie Tunsil this year has been phenomenal. And I
Hmm.
think he's been phenomenal since week one. Some of the opponents in which he faced, he was just on a different level in terms of his protection and his run blocking for the Commanders. And so I'm going with Laramie Tunsil as my first team All Pro at left tackle.
Yeah, I mean it's a good choice, and I can't argue too much because that's also who I selected as well.
Oh,
Yeah, I ultimately went with Tunsil. I mean, for all the reasons that you mentioned, I feel like he was pretty much his same self in pass protection this year. Very clean, crisp, minimal losses. But then the run game, this was on par, if not better, probably better than I think it was the 2023 season or so. It was
20,
CJ's
22 and 23 were really good for
22.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, like CJ Stroud's rookie year, Tunsil, I thought that was the best that I've ever seen him play. And then this year was first or second, being his best year. And yeah, for the reasons you mentioned in the run game, what he was doing, straining, finishing, displacing guys. He's being featured a lot in this run game. Washington runs a very diverse run game, so we get to see Tunsil executing pretty much everything in the book, which is awesome. So he's able to be kind of featured more than we're typically accustomed to seeing from him, which is nice. And he's rose to the occasion and then some. But yeah, just an elite blindside protector really is where you start with Tunsil. He hasn't really lost much this year. He's given up a couple sacks. I mean, I think it was like Abdul Carter got him once, and then against Denver, there was another one where I think they both may have been on play action, like jump set kind of situations where he got beat across his face. But um, man, like minimal losses this year, and that's really what edged him out above everybody else at left tackle for me. Was yeah, the run game was excellent, but like pass protection was probably the cleanest that we've seen of any left tackle in the league this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that last line is going to set up when we talk about our second and third teams. There's a couple of names there
Yeah,
that I think are kind of going to be differentiators that clean and pass pro. I think that some usual names have not been as clean as they've been, um, and especially early on.
right. Yeah, that and okay, so yeah, that's gonna kind of take us into second team, and this one I could go back and forth on honestly, but I wound up going with 49ers left tackle Trent Williams for
Okay.
second team, and it's really, I mean, you alluded to it already. The pass protection, especially early, wasn't as clean as we're accustomed to seeing from Trent. He had some losses against Seattle. Boy Mafe gave him some trouble. Of course, Miles Garrett gave him some trouble.
Yep.
Um, those two games stand out to me.
There were some battles too early on with the Rams. I think
Oh
that
yeah, Jared Verse.
Jared
Yeah.
Verse.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yeah,
those are some of the snaps that stick out to me
yep.
for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the ding against Trent this year is his pass protection was, I would say, very good, but it wasn't elite. Um, However, the run blocking was still elite.
Right.
And that was what edged it out to me because I'm really partial to if a guy has a clear superpower part of his game that is just clearly above and beyond and the best in the league at their position, then for me that carries weight, even if it's not pass protection and it's the run game. If the pass protection is good enough, which I think it was ultimately for him, being still, I would say like I don't know if we're stacking it, fourth or fifth, best pass protecting left tackle in the league this year, something like that, 4 to 6. But his run blocking was number one, in my opinion. So he still is so special in the run game. All the stuff that we're accustomed to seeing is still there, incredibly, being 37 years old, the oldest starting offensive lineman in the league for the second year in a row. Um, so that's what edged him out from the next guy. But I really do think it's kind of a toss up. And if Trent wasn't a first or second team All Pro this year, as long as this other guy is there, I mean I wouldn't be too upset about that.
Yeah, definitely. I echo your sentiments on Trent, which leads me to revealing my second team All Pro, and that's going to be Garrett Bowles from the Denver Broncos.
Nice.
So
That's cool.
I thought Garrett Bowles was consistent all season. I thought the consistency in which he played with, how clean he was in pass protection. He had some issues against Karlaftis this past game they played, was condensed a little bit, and then even Chris Jones on his edge. But
Yeah.
his performance against Micah Parsons
Yeah.
really stuck out to
Big
me.
time.
Yep. Really good in the run game as well. I think that just overall, Bowles has really grown into almost an underrated player.
Yep.
I think that doesn't get talked about enough. What he's able to do with his inside hand and being able to expand rushers is really nice. He's an asshole in the run game. I
Hmm.
think, and so it's been fun to see, man. I think that early on, I know I was really hard on him early on just from what I saw.
I mean, what a journey, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and I would say that his trajectory, him and Eric Fisher were very similar in terms of early on, highly touted, but like towards like the mid part in their primes of their careers, like you're like, oh, these guys are really legit, you know. And I think what it was is they figured it out, you know, the maturation of the game, you know, guys just start to figure it out. And you realize that some of these guys end up figuring it out and they're top picks for a reason. They're able to take those those God-given gifts and traits and really turn them into tools for the game. And I think you've seen that with Garrett Bowles.
So one more thing that I'll throw out here, because okay, so my third team is Garrett Bowles. So we'll kind
And
of go
mine,
in.
and mine is Trent Williams.
Okay, so we just flip flop here, and so this is another thing that I factored into my decision as well. With Garrett Bowles, his pass protection was cleaner than Trent, no question. But I do think that it's important to point out just sort of the styles of the pass protection that they both were operating within. And I look at play action as one. Denver ran a lot more play action than San Fran this year. They were fifth. San Fran was 20th. And then another thing is Denver ran more screens in the NFL this year than any team in football. They were first, 29 more than second place. And Trent, the Niners, they were 20th. So not a lot of screens, not a lot of play action in San Fran, a lot of play action, a lot of screens. And Denver was also first in rollouts as well. Just getting Bo Nix, outside the numbers and, in that area of the field to throw the ball. So just, I thought it was a little bit more of a difficult circumstance for Trent to operate in pass protection this year. However, Bowles still was cleaner in what he was asked to do. So that to me was a little bit of a factor that, along with the run blocking, being in Trent's favor, that kind of edged it over the line for me. So I thought that was kind of interesting to look at because, man, what Denver has done with Sean Payton and Zach Strief with their passing game and the way that it's structured the last 2 years, I mean, it's been as friendly as any team in the league, I think. So it's been, that's a factor to me. All right. So left tackle is done. I will say I want to shout out Tristan Wirfs. He had 11 starts this year. So he is kind of right on that cutoff. I mean, every time I watch Wirfs this year, he was phenomenal. Had a
Andrew Thomas
couple.
as well.
Thomas was, excellent. Those two guys, I think, deserve a shout out. I mean, they're, 4 and 5. I would put, Wirfs 4, Thomas 5 probably this year. But yeah, so I want to at least shout them out. All right, let's go to left guard. I I could kick this one off. The left guard, man, was the more that I watched left guard, the tighter it became for me. But my first team left guard, I'm going to go with Joe Tooney for the Bears. And, so far as we're recording this, he hasn't missed a game, played over 1,000 snaps. He is operating in I would probably say the Bears are the most friendly offensive line scheme in the NFL if I had to pick one. I think it matters a little bit less for the guards and the tackles, but however, second in play action, 10th in screens. I will say they're 32nd in time to throw, which I think is kind of a factor. I mean, Caleb, he's great at extending the play, but he's literally takes the longest to throw the football of any quarterback in the league. So that kind of helps and hurts, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But still, it's a very friendly scheme. However, I just think Tooney, man, the more I've dug into it, the more I watch, Tooney is Tooney. I mean, he carried over what he has been in Kansas City and even at the end in New England into what he was this year for Chicago, just being extremely reliable, consistent, gets compressed,
a lot.
yeah. It's not Chris Lindstrom compressed, but,
No.
that's been, I think, since his first year in the league till now. He's gradually improved it a little bit, but I mean, that's just who he is. He's an undersized, sawed off guard who wins with leverage and stuff, dies slow. But I went with Tooney though. He's a machine in the run game too, just in terms of footwork, fits, angles, all that sort of stuff is just pretty machine like. So I think he's a really good pass protector, though. Even if with the compression, I think he's really good with his hands. And so Tooney was my first team.
For me, I think there's 4 to 5 names that we could talk about in this conversation. But for me, I went with a player that maybe a lot of people didn't pay attention to, and that's Peter Skoronski. I went with Peter Skoronski as my first team because he was consistent all year. He was excellent in pass game and in run blocking. They lost Bill Callahan midway through the year. That offensive line has been a mess. But the lone bright spot and the consistent bright spot, I wouldn't say lone bright spot because I think that J.C. Latham has had some really good moments as well. But I would say that in terms of a level
consistency
and a level of play where you're like, oh, that's pretty special. When you turn on the tape, 77 stands out in terms of his ability to jump set, pass games off, move the point of attack. I thought a very key aspect of his game and improved from last year to this year is his blocks in space. And a lot of his blocks in space sprung long runs. And when I was looking for a differentiator between my first team and second team, I kind of looked at a couple of different things. One, guys getting beat across their face or getting compressed a lot, and it just didn't happen to him very often. I thought that with Tooney, Tooney got compressed a lot and got turned and edged a little bit, especially in the 49ers game. One of the things I see with Tooney is even in his jump sets, he doesn't bring his feet to the fight to really hold up. He's more of a hopper guy and dies slow. So that's why he gets pushed back, especially when those plays get extended. So my first team is Peter Skoronski. Do you want to jump into your second team or do you want me to jump into my second team?
You could go second.
Here. My second team is Quentin Nelson. And I thought that Q was phenomenal, both in pass protection and run blocking. Full transparency, one of the things that I went back and did is I watched Skoronski, Tooney, and Quentin against the 49ers. And after watching them all year, I said, all right, I'm going to watch these 3 games, common opponents, and see exactly who made the difference. And I thought that all of them were really good. I thought that Skoronski was cleaner. I thought that there was 2 or 3 plays where Q got beat late against San Fran when plays got extended. There was one time where he was beat to the inside. There was 2 or 3 run plays where he fell off blocks. But really, really awesome stuff to tape to study. Some of the jump sets that he had was very nice. Some of the up kicks. And it's really been like that all season. So It's tough, man. And so that would take me into, I don't know, who's your second team All Pro?
Yeah, I went Q
Okay.
for second team. Yeah, I mean, just another really consistent season for him, top to bottom. Colts, I would say fairly friendly scheme, but they had some turnover there as well in terms of center Bordellini's been in and out late in the season. Bernard Ravens missed some games. That's another thing for all these guys too, just factoring in who's playing next to them and whatnot, and kind of the turnover. So it's a little bit of a factor for Quentin. But fourth and play action, Colts typically do. They run a lot of play action, and they have a quarterback this year. Pretty much on average, they're fourth overall in quickest time to throw. So like it's in and out. Guys are getting rid of the ball quick. Whoever's in there, which I think helps Q. He's maybe a couple losses this season, glaring ones, but not many. But I think when you talk about Quentin Nelson, it's in pass protection. What stands out most to me, the jump sets have always been very good, and they were this year. Uncovered, I think he's maybe the best guard in the league, just in terms of simulated pressures when guys are trying to set him up and waste, a side of the line by simulating a pressure and guys spinners, faking like they're coming and dropping off. His ability to not get fooled by those things and maintain levels and clean up adjacent gaps. That is just like phenomenal machine. Like I think it's the best in the league and it has been for a while. So
I think
that stands out to me.
I would say him and Skoronski. Skoronski is the king of cleaning up the pocket in this
He's
situation.
yeah, Skronsky was really good this year cleaning up the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. He provided really nice physical presences, especially to the tackle. But yeah, Nelson just that's been something to me that's always stood out. And then in the run game, probably the best puller in the league,
Yep.
definitely in the conversation.
Yep.
And his ability to just make impact blocks as a run blocker is what edged out Skronsky. Although you mentioned, there was some really nice second level stuff that Skronsky did this year. But Q is still, I just think, at the top. So it was close. Again, I honestly think my first four left guards, you can kind of rotate in and out, and I wouldn't push back too heavily on it the more I watched. So um, third team for you, would that be Tooney or?
It was Tooney, and I went back and forth
Okay.
about this. I thought that in the mix for it was Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith was in there. Steve Avila, Damian Lewis. There's some guys that I thought that presented themselves with really good tape. So it made it hard, but ultimately, I think all the things that you highlighted about Tooney is what made me go with Joe Tooney as my third team.
Okay. Yeah, and I had Skoronsky as my third. So we have the same guys, just different order there. Yeah, and then Tyler Smith, typically is first or second. I just thought a couple more losses in pass protection this year than we're accustomed to seeing from him. Um,
Especially earlier in the season. I think earlier in the season, he
yeah,
had some quick losses.
yeah.
Whether it was him flat out getting beat or taking chances on some of the aggressive sets.
Yeah, those just bit him a little bit more than we're accustomed to seeing. So that's why he wasn't on there for, I guess, maybe both of us. But yeah, so we had the same three. But my fourth guy, if I had to pick, it would probably be Damian Lewis. I mean, the more I dug into Damian Lewis, man, I mean, this was the best year of his career. I've watched every snap of him the last 3-4 years, and there was just a sense of urgency in his movement this year that I'm not typically accustomed to seeing. Especially like last year, he started off, I think he was kind of heavy and slow for the first few games, and then he kind of settled into what he normally was. This year, I mean, first week to the last game that I just watched, I mean, his jump sets, man, and how firm he is at the line of scrimmage with his anchor is as good as it gets, close to Tyler Smith level, at least this year. Not as good at the second level on the move as these guys, and I think that's what edged these other guys out for me. They just offer more in the run game, especially second level. But yeah, Damian Lewis, man, had to shout him out because he had a heck of a season this year.
Yeah, you know what? There was just flashes of physical dominance all through Damian Lewis's tape, man. And I really enjoyed working with Damian through the pre-draft process. I thought that he's a very high football IQ guy too. Like some of the
Mm,
things that they needed to know when he was at LSU was above and beyond, which allowed the game to really slow down to him for him. But I think what we're seeing is a guy that has really developed a skill set and a toolbox built around his traits and what he does really well, and not going away from that, man. He knows exactly who he is. And I
yep.
think this is his best year, man. I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the talks for the All Pro conversation. Although I think that this All Pro team is probably the one that probably means the most to some guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. All right. So let's go on to center. This is the one I'm probably the most confident in terms of first and second, probably third. I mean, all the way across the board. I'm
Yeah,
very
I
firm
don't
on this.
I don't think this is close. Probably first, second, and third, based upon the tape
Yeah.
that we watched. And I think that if you really dive into the tape, I don't think we're any different here. Maybe we
I
are.
don't
Maybe
think so
second and
either.
third is, but I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I don't think so either. So, I mean, we could just go through all three real quick. Not real quick, but just outline all three. So, my first team is Aaron Brewer from
Yep.
the Dolphins. Second
Yep.
team, Creed Humphrey,
Yep.
Chiefs. Third team, Zach Frazier, Steelers.
Yep.
I
We've
think
got it.
that
We've got it the same.
okay, yeah, that might be the most interesting conversation is the third team discussion. But even then, we could go into the reasons why. But I think it's interesting when you look at sort of the archetype of centers. Like you got Brewer and maybe Linderbaum, kind of similar, just being undersized guys who are really good at the second level, things like that. And then Humphrey and Frazier are more stout, firm, kind of in the same box, if you will. And then, of course, as you get deeper, there's nuances that are different. But
Yep.
um, but Brewer this year, the reason why he was first team for me, I just thought, Aaron Brewer is what he put on tape this year, man. There's a sense of urgency and explosiveness and a rate of impact blocks from Aaron Brewer this year that I think is unmatched
He's a
across the
weapon.
NFL. Yeah, he was an absolute weapon this year in the run game. Granted that, I will say I think if I have to sort of come against this argument at all, it would be just that Miami's passing game, their protection, and just what they're asked to do is up there with one of the more friendly in the league. Given first in time to throw with Tua, I mean, he gets rid of the ball quicker than any quarterback in football. They run a ton of screens. They run a lot of play action. So it is less of a lift in pass protection than I'd say 85% of the teams in the league. With that said, what he does well in the run game is exceptional. I think he's the best run blocking center in the league this year. Not just at the second level. The second level is by far better than anybody, but also reaching shades, reaching two eyes, reaching two techs, overtaking on combos, just everything, even back blocks. He's just exceptional. And his pass protection, granted, with all that said that I pointed out, was still really good this year. So yeah, he was my first, by a long shot.
Yeah, I think for all the reasons you just highlighted, and even in pass protection, like he's actually left by himself a lot because of all the play action stuff that they're doing. Kind of him at the pivot. I think if there was a game where there were some issues, it was against the Colts with Grover, just the size and the strength. But
Yeah.
even those pass protection reps were battle. And I think that the important thing that I think really people need to know is that Aaron Brewer is 6 foot and 285 pounds.
No, it's
And
unreal, dude.
he was a weapon in run game and in pass protection and finished guys. There wasn't really a flaw in his game. He put it all together.